Hello, Mountain View kids and families. This is Miss Martha coming to you from my living room. And this is our very first installment in our Mountain View Kids Corner. We're putting this on our brand new Mountain View YouTube channel. So make sure that you are like and subscribe to our channel so that you can continue to get these videos. This channel is separate from our regular Mountain View channel. This channel will only be for content for the kids. Today's lesson is for May 10th, 2020, which also happens to be Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all of you moms out there. You guys are in the trenches right now, and I really appreciate all of your hard work and effort for your kids. So I hope you have a wonderful Mother's Day with your family, and hopefully soon you'll be able to celebrate with more than just your family. Today's lesson is called Peter in Prison. It is found in Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 17. For my source, I'm using the Deep Blue One Room Sunday School program published by Abingdon. So my lesson and all the handouts, the downloads that will come to you in the video, or I'm sorry, in the email that I send out are from that curriculum. First, we have our Bible verse for May, and this comes from Acts 4:20. Let me get so you can see it. And so you can read that along with me as I read it. As for us, we can't stop speaking about what we have seen and heard. And this is from Acts 4:20 in our children's Bible. And this is Peter and John speaking on their, as they were in trial. They had been arrested for preaching about Jesus. And they basically said that they weren't going to stop, even though the leaders of the Jewish church wanted them to stop. So that is our Bible verse that we are working on for this month of May. All right, now first of all, before we do our lesson, one of the crafts we have, and this will be in the download that I send in my email, is a paper bag puppet. And there's the instructions that you can see for that. You can make this with a paper bag if you have one, and you can choose some of the characters in our story, which could be Peter, the Roman guard, the angel, a girl named Rhoda, or King Herod, or anyone else. I've made a puppet here, and this is supposed to be Peter. As you can see, I don't have much artistic ability, but I did do this. I just took a paper bag. I put some white paper over it because my bag has printing on the bottom side, and so I wanted to cover that up. And then I just used my colored pencils and drew Peter. If you make a puppet, make sure that you put his mouth right on the corner of where the bag opens so that you can open it and he can talk. So I put his little tongue in there, and you can see that. Now, if you have craft supplies, you can always put yarn on this, googly eyes, anything you want to decorate it. But I don't actually have a lot of craft supplies at home. I just had my colored pencils, and so I drew Peter here for our story. So if you want to make a paper bag puppet as we're telling the story, you can stop the video, make your puppet, and then you can use that as we tell our story. Now, I'm going to start reading the Bible story. And the Bible that I'm using is a International Children's Bible that I'm using, and that makes it a little bit easier for children to understand the words. It leaves out a lot of those big Bible words. And again, I'm reading the story from Acts chapter 12, verses 1 through 7. As I tell the story, I'm going to stop and explain some things. So our story is called Peter in Prison, but as I think a funnier name is Prison Escape and a Crazy Girl. So you're going to see how that comes into our story. So I'm starting here in Acts chapter 12, verse 1. During that same time, King Herod began to do terrible things to some who belonged to the church. Now, we're talking King Herod here, but there were several King Herods. The Herods, it was like a family name. It was called the House of Herod. And we know about the King Herod who was around when Jesus was born, the Herod who ordered all the babies to be killed. That was actually the grandfather of this Herod. And there was a second Herod a third Herod, who was also king during the time when Jesus was crucified, and that is the uncle of this Herod. So there was the grandfather and the uncle, and now this Herod, and he was actually called Herod Agrippa. And he was worried about the church spreading, the word of the gospel spreading, and his main priority was to keep the peace. He didn't want any trouble in Jerusalem, and so he thought that if he put these church people in prison, that might make the other people happy. Verse 2, he ordered James, the brother of John, to be killed by the sword. And this is our apostle James. He was the very first apostle who was killed during this time. This time is about 10 years after Jesus was crucified. So the church has begun to grow a little bit, but they're still mostly centered in Jerusalem and in the area in Israel. Verse 3, Herod saw that the Jews liked this, so he decided to arrest Peter too. This happened during the time of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and that's our Passover time. So this was in the spring, maybe about April. And Peter has been in prison for about a week. Now, when we talk about Roman prisons, we're not talking prisons like we have today. The Roman prisons back then were not good places to be in. I printed out a picture you can kind of see here, and most Roman prisons were just stone areas, not clean at all. They were dark, and they were not good places to be in. They were not places where people were kept for lengths of time. Like today, we put people in prison sometimes for years, and that's their punishment. In Roman times, people were put in prison just to hold them while they were waiting for trial and probable execution. So they were not meant to be nice places. A lot of times they stayed there. They may have gotten food, probably like bread and water. A lot of times they were dependent on people actually bringing them food. If you had friends and family nearby, they would have to bring you food to get you food. So if you didn't have friends or family nearby, you might not get any food. So they were not good places to be in. So Peter is in this prison for about 7 days, and they're waiting for him to be on trial. Verse 4, after Herod arrested Peter, he put him in jail and handed him over to be guarded by 16 soldiers. So the soldiers were actually in groups of 4 soldiers at a time around the clock. So they probably had a watch of about 6 hours, and they had usually 2 people in the actual jail cell with the prisoner, so Peter in this case, 2 people outside watching, and they were actually chained, the soldiers were chained to Peter, I don't know, by his ankles or by the wrist, so that Peter obviously was not going to go anywhere. Herod planned to bring Peter before the people for trial before the Passover feast. So Peter was kept in jail, but the church kept on praying to God for him. So while Peter's in prison, the church members are in their houses in the city, and they are praying for Peter to be released. Verse 6, the night before Herod was to bring him to trial, Peter was sleeping. He was between 2 soldiers bound with 2 chains. Other soldiers were guarding the door of the jail. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord stood there. A light shined in the room. The angel touched Peter on the side and woke him up. The angel said, "Hurry, get up!" And the chains fell off Peter's hands. The angel said to him, "Get dressed and put on your sandals." And so Peter did this. Then the angel said, "Put on your coat and follow me." So the angel went out, and Peter followed him. Peter did not know if what the angel was doing was real. He thought he might be seeing a vision. So an angel appears in his prison cell. The chains fall off his arms, or his hands, and he's told to get up, get his clothes on, and walk out. And Peter thinks he's dreaming. He thinks that this is just a good dream that he's having. He doesn't believe it's real. They went past the first and second guard. They came to the iron gate that separated them from the city. The gate opened itself for them. They went through the gate and walked down a street, and the angel suddenly left him. Then Peter realized what had happened. He thought, "Now I know that the Lord really sent his angel to me. He rescued me from Herod and from all the things the Jewish people thought would happen." So now the angel has disappeared. The gate actually opens up all by itself. It was a big miracle. The angel disappears, and then Peter realizes he's not dreaming. This is really happening. He's been rescued from jail, and just in the nick of time. Verse 12. When he realized this, he went to the home of Mary. She was the mother of John. John was also called Mark. Many people were gathered there praying. Peter knocked on the outside door. A servant girl named Rhoda came to answer it. She recognized Peter's voice, and she was very happy. She even forgot to open the door. She ran inside and told the group, "Peter is at the door." And I've got a nice picture here in this book. And there's Peter. And you can see there, he's there at the door, and then there is Rhoda answering the door. And the funny thing is, Peter's knocking at the door. He's just escaped from prison miraculously by this angel. He knocks at the door. Rhoda recognizes him, and she doesn't even let him in. She leaves him out on the street. She runs back inside to tell the disciples what's happening. They said to her, "You are crazy." But she kept on saying that it was true. So they said it must be Peter's angel. So they've been praying for Peter to be released from prison, and when it happens, they don't believe it. They think Rhoda's a crazy girl, and then they think she must be seeing an angel. They think Peter's been killed, and now just his angel has shown up at their house for some reason. So they think she's crazy. Verse 16, so Peter continues to knock. So he's at the door, knocking away, realizing that they haven't let him in. When they opened the door, they saw him and were amazed. They finally decided to open the door. They realized it was Peter, really Peter, not his angel, and they were amazed. Peter made a sign with his hand to tell them to be quiet. He explained how the Lord led him out of the jail. And he said, "Tell James and the other believers what happened." Then he left to go to another place. So finally they see Peter, they hear his story, they realize what's happened, their prayers have been answered, and then Peter leaves. Obviously he can't stay in Jerusalem because he's been in prison, and if they find him, they're going to put him back in prison and put him back on trial. So Peter leaves to go someplace else, and then the disciples have the story, and then they can start sharing the story about what really happened to Peter. So here's a picture too I found, and I'm going to send this out in my email. And there's Peter and the angel. That's actually two Peters. He's like sitting here and then sitting up a little bit more with that. And then I'll send you this picture, and then you can download it and color it if you want to do that. So the interesting in this story is that the disciples have all been praying for Peter to be released from prison, and then when it actually happens, they don't believe it. It's kind of an interesting thing. Many times when we pray for things, I think sometimes in the back of our mind, we don't really think God is going to answer our prayers. But God can, and he can even do miraculous things like get you out of prison when you're locked up and chained between all these guards. God can answer any prayer, even a little prayer or a big prayer like that. So when we pray, we need to pray expecting that God will answer our prayers. Now, that doesn't mean he'll always do what we want. Yeah, he's not just a magician who will do everything we ask him to do. Sometimes he says no, or sometimes he says wait. But we need to remember that God will answer our prayers, and we need to be expecting these things. So that's our story today about Peter's amazing escape from prison, and how God wasn't done with Peter yet. He wanted Peter to continue to spread the word, and he wanted the disciples to have greater faith in him and answering prayer before, as they were going to be spread out all through the world telling the story of Jesus. So it's really a great story. It shows how amazing God can be and how we really need to expect God to answer. Now we have a craft that's going to be sent in the email too, and it's a paper chain, and it's got some of the events that happen. They're not in the right order. That's for you to cut them out and figure out the right order and make a paper chain. So it's an angel helped Peter escape from the prison. Peter went and told the church about his escape. King Herod put Peter in jail for talking about Jesus, and the church met together to pray for Peter. So I've already cut these out, and I'll show you how to make the paper chain. Now, most of the time you can use glue, but for whatever reason, I couldn't find glue in my house, but that's okay because I have tape. If you don't have glue or tape, you could even staple it. You can cut them out, you can color them if you want to print more copies of it to make a longer chain, because there's only 4 on here. You can have fun with it, but I know kids like to color these and they're fun to put together. So you just take the first one, and I'm going to take a little piece of tape here, and you just put the ends together, and I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on that, and I've taped it into a loop. And then you take your next one and you put it through the loop, and then connect your ends. Tape that in there. And now I've got 2 loops, and then I just continue. I put the next one in. And the reason we're making a paper chain is because it's representing that Peter was in chains while he was in prison. So there's 3 of them, and then I'm going to put the last one in. And paper chains are always fun to do. Sometimes people make paper chains when they're counting down, like before Christmas. If you want to make a paper chain to count down the 24 days before Christmas, that's always a fun thing. You can make your chain, and then you can cut off a loop every day as you're counting down. There's a lot of things you can do in there, and they're kind of fun to make. So that's our paper chain for to represent Peter in prison. Now the last thing we can do is, because Sunday is Mother's Day, an easy craft that you can make at home for your mom is you can take little squares of paper. This is a square, it's just one of those memo cube papers. It's about 3 inches by 3 inches. You can make it in any size you want, but make sure it's a square, which means all the sides are the same length. So you can make any size you want. And I'm going to show you how to make a super easy heart with your paper. So the first thing you do is you take your square and you fold it diagonally in the middle. So you make a diagonal, and then you open it up again. Okay, so I've opened it. Then you take your top corner and you fold it down just to the middle, like that. Okay, I'll show you that again. You just fold it down. Then the next thing you do is you take your bottom corner and you fold it all the way up until it touches the top. So the bottom corner folds all the way up until it touches the top there. Okay? Then you're going to take your corner, this is the hardest part, is you fold it up. Make sure I'm doing this the right way. You fold up the corner here, right in the middle. So you're taking that bottom corner and you're just folding it so it folds up like this. And then you do the same thing for the other side, so it looks like that. So I'll show you that part again, because that can be a little trickier. This is the hardest part. You just fold it right in the middle, kind of diagonally up like that. So you can see it almost looks like a heart. So now the next thing we do is we just kind of fold down these top corners here, and then we fold in the sides just a little bit, and that makes it look more like a heart. So you can color it, you can put a nice message on there for your mom, like, I love you and thank you for everything you do for me, and thank you for driving me everywhere, and all the things you do. You could make a bunch of these. You could do them in different colors. You can color them. You can scatter them through the house and surprise your mom. You can hide them places and see if she can find them. You can make them in different sizes. Another thing you can do is you could glue it to a popsicle stick and make like a bookmark for her, or you could make a bunch of those on popsicle sticks and put it in a little tin, like a little bouquet of hearts for her. So that's something you can do really easy with stuff that you have at home if you don't have a lot of craft supplies. So that's one of the crafts we can do for this week. So, and that is our story. So last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pray real quick for all of you. I miss all of you kids so much. Every Sunday, seeing your smiling faces, it really is such a blessing for me. And I'm hoping that we can be together soon in some way. So I'm going to pray for all of you. Dear Jesus, I thank you for this time that I can share with these children. Lord, I ask that you bless each of these children and their families as they are at home right now. I pray that they would all be safe and healthy. I pray that this lesson about praying and expecting to hear your answer will touch some of their hearts, and that they will know that we can trust you to answer our prayers. And I pray, Father, that we will be together soon, and that you will keep all of us growing in you during this time, Father. And I pray for these things in Jesus' name. All right, kids, so it's been a great time with this story, and make sure you like and subscribe to our Mountain View Kids channel. And if you want to get included on my email list and you're not already on that, I will have a new email coming soon. But right now, if you don't have that, you can just put your email in the comments in the video, and I will put you on my list, and I will take your email off that once I get you on my list. So if you want to get my email, which I send out every week, it has downloads for you to print so that you've got all of our story ideas and crafts at home that you can download and print. So make sure I have your email so that you can get those things from me as well. So I just pray blessings on you for this week and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.